Now that we're comfortable writing equations in slope-intercept form when we're given the slope and y-intercept, let's go ahead and now move to a graph. So this graph here is a linear equation. We can see that because it's a straight line, which means that we're going to be able to use our slope-intercept form. So we've got a couple steps here before we get to that, so let's go ahead and go through these questions. So the first one says, what is the y-intercept of the line? And the y-intercept of the line is the point where it crosses this y-axis. So this y-axis is our vertical one, and I can see that it crosses over that vertical line right here. So the point where it crosses the y-axis is when y equals -1. So our y-intercept is -1. Now next, I need to find the slope of the line. And if I remember back to finding slope, I know that there's a couple things that I need to do. I need to first find some perfect points. So in a lot of instances, not all the time, but a lot of times, my y-intercept is going to be a perfect point. So I can go ahead and start there because this one is. It intersects both the vertical and the horizontal grid line. So I've got one perfect point there. And as I travel up this line, I've got some points that are close, but the next one that I come to is right here. So I've got my perfect point right there. So now that I've found my two perfect points, I'm going to go ahead and find the slope again. So if I remember back to finding slope, I'm going to draw a slope triangle. So I'm going to draw that using these grid lines and connecting those 2 points together. And that triangle is a perfect right triangle on those grid lines. We don't have it diagonal, it's not extending out, it only has 3 sides. So we've got a perfect right triangle there for our slope triangle. Now, in order to find the slope, I need to use my slope formula. And that formula, I remember back, was m is equal to rise over run. So the amount that it went up and down divided by the amount that it went side to side. So I'm going to go ahead and count here. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's 5 units up, which means it's +5. And then I've got to the right 1, 2, 3, and to the right goes towards those positive numbers as well. So I've got 5 divided by 3. 5 divided by 3, I can't simplify that at all, which means that the slope of this line is just 5/3 because we always write slope as a fraction. So it's just going to be 5/3. Now the last question here is finally asking me, what is the equation for this line? So anytime that I'm trying to write an equation for a line in slope-intercept form, I'm going to start out by writing slope-intercept form. So y equals mx plus b. Now that I've written slope-intercept form as y equals mx plus b, I can go ahead and start to substitute in. So I remember I've got my m right here, and that matches with my m in my slope-intercept form. So I'm going to take my 5/3 and put that in place of my slope. So I've got y equals 5/3 x plus b. Now I know that b is my y-intercept, so I'm going to say it's plus -1. But sometimes I can just simplify this a little bit further. And instead of writing it as plus -1, I'll just say that my equation for my line is y equals 5/3 x minus 1. Because we know that these two equations are the same thing. Because subtraction is just adding the opposite. So we can write it either way.